Okay. And there's also another special thing about chapter 9. The title itself is very interesting. So we'll come to that. So anyway, welcome everybody. Day 9, Gita Gyan. So we will begin with dedicating our presentation to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Join me in this prayer. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tatsat. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Vigna Vinasha Narasimhaiti Namine, Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayatim Girim, Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande, Sri Guru Dinatharinam, Paramananda Madhavam, Sri Chaitanya Mishwaram. Om Tatsat. So by the blessings of Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Shubhadramai, Sri Shrita Sundar Gaura Hari, and introducing also our deities in Sridham Mayapur. Sridham Mayapur is the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is about 100 kilometers or more than Calcutta, north of Calcutta. So here, this is our ISKCON headquarters in the world, and it's this is Sri Sri Radha Madhava Ashtashaki. So I couldn't get, to get one full photo of all of them is not going to fit into the screen well. So therefore, I truncated the photo a bit like this. Don't mind if I mute some people here, so it's easier. So these are the principal Shakis, or the 8 principal gopis of Radharani. So the one, this is Sri Sri Radha, they are life-size deities. So anyway, Sri Sri Radha Madhava Ashtashaki Ki Jai. And we begin with some glorification of the Bhagavad Gita. So this is from the verse 9 of the Vaishnaviya Tantra Shara. Ye Shrinvanti Patanti Eva Gita Shastram Ahar Nisham Nate Vai Manusha Neya Deva Rupa Na Samsayaha. One who day and night hears and recites the Gita is never to be taken as a mere human being. Without a doubt, he is godly, Deva Rupa. So with that, we also have Bhagavad Gita Day. This will be coming in 25th of December. So it's considered it's actually timed towards the timing where the Gita Jayanti will coincide also. So it's not on the same day, but sometimes it might coincide. So just informing. So then, we begin with prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we can recap chapter 8. Yesterday, a quick recap of what we did. The topic was attaining the Supreme. So it started off with Arjuna questioning Krishna, what is Brahman, what is Adhyatma, what is material manifestation, and what is karma. So in this way he asks, and Krishna gives short answers to each of these, which he will later elaborate further in later chapters. And then leading from this topic, from what is Brahman, what is the self, we talked about the nature of the self, how we came about in this material creation. So what's the purpose of this material creation? And from there, we spoke a little bit about how we get trapped in our karmic activities in the material creation due to our desires, icha. So in the beginning, due to the envy or asuya, which we had for the Lord, so therefore, and we wanted to have dominion over creation. So therefore, the Lord gave us that chance in this material creation. And in this way, we are going through various cycles of life and death, enjoying and going through our various karma, which we have got entrapped with along the way. So then what's the way out? So the way out is always available. So Krishna reveals the path of yoga, which is what has been the main topic of discussion for the last few chapters. And when he talks about yoga, the process of yoga aims towards death. So death is the key. So the yoga is basically a preparation to bring one's consciousness to a certain point where at the time of death, one is able to fix his consciousness upon the Lord. So death is significant. We heard about how death is, by remembering the Lord, Krishna Smaranam, we can attain Krishna. The law of death involves that whatever that we think at the time of death, antakale cha mam nitya, whatever we think at the time of death, that we will attain without fail. So Krishna established that. So it's a very important point. It's one of the fundamental building blocks of our understanding. Like various chapters, we had different building blocks. We first started off with the soul, reincarnation, then the karma, and then in this way attaining the supreme. So this is another very important key point. So now that we know that death is the key of attaining any destination, so then Krishna speaks further about the different types of deaths. So particularly in the yoga path. So the destination is the spiritual abode, and he speaks a little bit about the jnani path departure. So for the jnanis, they have to arrange situations in such a way that they have to leave during the light, in a fiery situation, or during Uttaranayana, or during Shukla Paksha, or during a Muhurta. So these are the arrangements made for the jnani. Whereas for the devotees, there is no need for such arrangements. The Lord personally takes care of the devotee in whichever situation. So therefore, this is the path of surrender, or Pushti Marga. Pushti Marga means path of surrender. And that was basically chapter 8. So key takeaways were, death is the exam, Krishna Smaranam, or remembrance of Krishna, is the key to passing that exam with flying colors. So how do we do this? So we spoke a bit later on after the chapter, we spoke about the 9 processes of bhakti. So beginning with Shravanam, hearing, and then continuing with Kirtanam, chanting and Kirtan, and then Smaranam, which will lead to naturally Smaranam. So like that, there were 9 processes. After that, there's Pada Sevanam, then there is what we call Archanam, Pujyam, and in this way, 9 different processes. So each one of them, any one of them actually can lead one to attaining the supreme position, can give one's life full perfection. Navavida Bhakti. And especially by chanting the name of Krishna. So amongst these 9 processes, Sankirtan or Kirtanam was stressed as the Yuga Dharma and a particularly potent process in this Kali Yuga. And then we ended by saying how the Bhakti path is the direct access to the spiritual world, because in order to come to the spiritual world, one must develop Krishna Prema. So bhakti or prema. Otherwise, we cannot exist in the Antaranga Shakti, in the spiritual energy of the Lord. So therefore, that was why we were in the material plane in the first place. So therefore, in the material plane, if you are able to develop this Krishna Prem, we can attain this. So today we will speak about chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge, and it is called Raja Vidya Yoga in Sanskrit. Raja Vidya means the king of knowledge, the yoga of the king of knowledge. So Prabhupada also gives the translation as confidential. It's not a translation. He gives another title. So therefore, he says most confidential knowledge. And this is also true. We will see in the verse, the same verse that says Raja Vidya, Raja Yogam. It will say Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam. Guyam means secret, the most, the greatest, the king of secrets. So this chapter is the king of knowledge and the king of secrets. So we will see what it's all about. But before that, just a quick understanding of what the Bhagavad Gita is all about. So, and in this, we will also go through the key understandings of what we went through yesterday also in a sort of like a model. So it's easier for us to also remember and understand. So Bhagavad Gita speaks about 5 main topics. So it can be classified as 5. Of course, it speaks about many things, but it can be categorized as 5 main topics. So if you remember, we began with chapter 2, where we spoke about the soul. So Jiva is one of the topics that Bhagavad Gita will speak about, the nature of the soul and all that is pertaining to the soul. But besides speaking about the Jiva or the Jivatma, Krishna also speaks about the Paramatma or the Ishvara, the Supreme Controller, and he also speaks about the Bhagavan, about himself. In fact, in chapter 1, in chapter 2 and chapter 3, Krishna gives hints about his actual position. But in chapter 4, he reveals for the first time to Arjuna. And then in chapter 7, he elaborates more. He goes into the details of his ultimate supreme position. So therefore, he speaks about himself, Ishvara. So there is Jiva and there is Paramishvara, the Supreme Lord. And before we talk about the other 3 topics, a quick understanding about this Jiva and Ishvara. Remember yesterday I was saying how the Jiva, when he looks and sees Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Purusha, the possessor, the Bhagavan, the possessor of all opulences. So there are 2 types of reactions the Jiva can have. The first reaction is when we meet someone who is so wonderfully qualified, who is better than us in every way, who is so glorious, who is so wondrous, who is so kind, who is so attractive. So we could develop love and we can have a desire to associate with that person and sincerely serve that person and be with that person. So love and seva. So this is the hallmark of bhakti. So bhakti is therefore, and in Sanskrit, we call this prema. This kind of pure, unalloyed love, unconditional love and seva in different levels, but nevertheless, the root flavor is unconditional love, and this is called prema bhakti. So when there is prema bhakti, and the nature of prema bhakti is to serve the Lord, right? So, and the spiritual world is made up of the various energies of the Lord. So the Lord has what is called Antaranga Shakti, the internal energy of the Lord. And this internal energy of the Lord is basically trying to serve the Lord in various ways. So there is a compatibility between the energy of the Lord and also the jivas who have prema. So all of them in the entire spiritual creation are revolving around Krishna or the Supreme Lord. So there is total compatibility, no problem. So they become permanent residents of the spiritual world. They are called Nitya Siddhas, those devotees, those jivas who have prema, Nitya Siddhas. So, and this is known as the, and the Jiva is also one of that Shakti. You know, when we say Antaranga Shakti, internal energy, the Jiva is actually also a part of that. There are many types of energies of the Lord. Amongst these internal energy, which is spirit, the Jiva is also one of them, the Jivatma. So later on in level 2, we will speak in detail about these different energies of the Lord. But anyway, so this is called spirit. So I've put a yellow shade over here to indicate that spiritual energy. This is under the Antaranga Shakti. So the Jiva is considered spirit. The Supreme Lord is also spirit. Now, at the same time, there is the other type of Jivas, the other set of Jivas, when they see someone who is so wonderful, glorious, and everything, instead of feeling the desire to, instead of feeling attraction to serve and to love, they rather feel asuya, or what is called envy. They feel like, oh, I also want to be like that. I also want to have that kind of energies. I also want to have control and dominion over the world. So when they have that kind of thinking, then it is not revolving around the Supreme Lord. So it is not compatible with the Antaranga Shakti of the Lord. So therefore, and the Lord also wants to reciprocate with this Jiva. So as I mentioned, he gives them the free will to choose. He doesn't force them. So therefore, they select to feel this way, and the Lord reciprocates with that also. Okay, you feel like that, I will give you a place to satisfy your desires. So therefore, and it cannot take place in the Antaranga Shakti, but the Lord has a shadow of the potency of his energy. So the shadow energy of Antaranga is Bahiranga, external, Bahiranga, external energy of the Lord. So therefore, where will this external energy of the Lord be? So here I'm going to indicate in green the external energy of the Lord is called the material. Is one. There are many things to it, but in general, it's called, okay. Anyway, it's called Bahiranga Shakti, and one of its nature is Maya, and the other nature is its material. So spiritual, material. The difference is one is spirit and the other is matter. So therefore, here the Lord in this Bahiranga Shakti, he creates the material world, the material creation. And this material creation is in totality called Prakriti. Prakriti is the material creation of the Lord, which is coming from the external energy of the Lord. So he creates a playground for the jivas who have developed asuya, envy, and in this way have gotten karma, and this is their place where they can satisfy themselves in whichever way they like, but according to the rules set by the Lord. So as I mentioned, the Lord has a plan for this material world, okay, and therefore these jivas who have this nature are placed in the material nature of the Lord, in Prakriti. So this is the process of how the material world is created. And Krishna will talk about this also, how the jivas are injected inside. It's like the seed-giving father is Krishna, and the mother nature, material energy, is the mother. So therefore, the jivas are injected inside the womb of the mother nature. And in this way, we take our birth in various material bodies within Prakriti. So, and here I've put a legend to indicate the nature of various energies. So this color indicates eternal. So both Ishvara and Jiva are eternal. And Prakriti is also eternal, because this is also energy of the Lord. Energy of the Lord is always going on. It never ceases to be. And here I've indicated Shakti. So the Lord is the possessor of all Shaktis. And Jiva and Prakriti fall under the category of Shakti, right? So it's part of the energy. Jiva is a bit special. Jiva is both Shakti, at the same time it is also Amsa. So this is a bit technical. We won't talk about it here. So sometimes he is categorized as Shakti and sometimes he is categorized as Amsa. But it's both are true. We will talk about that detail in level 2 later on. But in general, I'm saying both are Shaktis. Why Jiva Shakti? Because it's part of the Antaranga Shakti, one of the parts of Antaranga Shakti. And then there is also spiritual, yellow to indicate spiritual. So the yellow triangle here on top is indicating the Jiva and the Ishvara are spiritual in energy and in nature. Whereas Prakriti here is material. Okay. And yeah, so that is basically the difference. And in order, the Lord does not want the Jiva to remain in this playground forever. Just like how the parents will send the child to the playground, but eventually he wants the child to come back home. So therefore, he sets this material creation, he defines it and constrains it with what is called as Kala, which is the fourth aspect which Bhagavad Gita talks about. So the Bhagavad Gita will speak about 5 tattvas: Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti. We will hear more about Prakriti from chapter 13 onwards. Here and there we will hear in other chapters, but later chapters will speak more about the Prakriti. Kala, we will speak a little also later in chapter 12, 13, no, chapter 11 and all that. We also spoke a bit earlier about the time of how time works, the life of Brahma, how the celestial years work, the conversion between human years to heavenly, the Manvantara, and then from one Manvantara to one Kalpa. So like that, there is a conversion of years, how the years are affecting the world. But this is all basically time. And this time, Kala, note, I also put as creator. So Kala is actually an expansion of the Lord. It is actually his potency directly. So the Lord expands himself as time. Later on in chapter 11, Krishna will declare, I am time. He will say that. So under the purview of time, the Jiva in the material, in the Prakriti, in material world, under the purview of time is going through beginning and end. In this way, cyclically, he's going about and he is performing what is called karma. So this is the 5 tattvas. Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti. Under the purview of Prakriti and Kala, the Jiva, who had the desire to enjoy separately from the Lord, he performs various activities of karma within the material creation. And while he's performing these various, he's trying to satisfy his tendency, his desire, his icha, dominion over everything. He wants to lord it over material creation, and therefore he's given this playground to do so. But as he is doing this, the problem here is he gets covered by illusion, because Prakriti Shakti is very powerful and she is very vast, whereas the Jiva is, though spiritual, he is very small, Anu. So when he is cut off, what happens is, when he's enjoying himself here in this material creation, just like when you bring the child to the playground, in the beginning, the child is holding your hand, and then the child is safe. Nothing happens to the child while your child is holding your hand. But the moment he hits the playground, he becomes so bewildered by the playground, he wants to let go your hand and go and enjoy by himself. So at that time, when he lets go the hand of the Lord, it means that time the entire Prakriti becomes so powerful that it overwhelms him, that he becomes lost in its illusion. So, and this illusion is also necessary, because then only this Jiva can forget that the Supreme Lord is the eternal provider, that he is the master. Then he will start thinking that I am the master. So in this way, he will satisfy his desire for dominion and lordship. So as he is going through this, he gets trapped in karma. Because karma, there are laws, there are rules, there are certain things he should not do, certain things he should do. And it's very complex, because, it's like in a river, in a large reservoir of water. If we throw one stone into that water, into a still water, what will happen? We will see ripples, right? All concentric ripples starting from one center where the stone hit the water. Now, but the problem is we are not the only jivas who are alone in this material creation. There are many other jivas because it's necessary, because how else to get lordship over another jiva? So all the other jivas has to be here. So every jiva is vying for lordship over each other. So in this way, there are many stones being thrown into the pond. So each stone which is hitting the pond creates its own concentric ripple. And sometimes this ripple clash. So that's why every action will have an opposite and equal reaction. And we do not know the extent of our, the consequences of our action. And some of these may affect another living entity's right. So therefore karma, and they get trapped. And in this way, trapped by karma, but still not satisfied with their desire, they go through life after life, birth after birth, various species of life. In this way, they go on for since time immemorial, trapped in this material world. So then what happens is, so this is the story of this, what we call the Jivatmas, who had developed Asuya, envy, and are trying to satisfy their lust, karma, in this material world. So what's the way out? The way out is to, so Krishna also gives the way out. It's not like he has abandoned us. After all, he is with us. He is supervising. It's like as if a closed circuit TV is built in with all of us. With a child in the playground, there's a closed circuit TV built in. And the moment the child says, enough, that's it, I want to come back to you, father or mother, then the Lord takes charge. So he's waiting, just like the two birds in the tree. The other bird is waiting for this other bird to turn and say, I want to look at you, I want to come back to you. So therefore, Krishna gives yoga, the path back. But it's not just simply a path back, because Krishna doesn't want that he comes back and then after that, he's not yet purified of his envy. He's not yet purified of his karma. So therefore, the Lord wants this jiva to also become like the other jivatmas who are in prema, and in this way remain eternally with him in the spiritual kingdom amongst the Antaranga Shakti. So therefore, he wants, this plan is also at the same time satisfies the jiva's desire, but at the same time, it also works in such a way that this is Krishna's plan for the jiva to be corrected, to be, changed into voluntarily accepting the Lord as the Supreme Lord and to serve him. So this is, he wants them to develop bhakti so that the Lord can enjoy transcendental loving relationship with the jivas. And so this yoga, if this jiva who is having karma and envy in all the different impurities covered by illusion in this material creation, if somehow by good fortune he comes across yoga pathway, he comes to, for example, read Bhagavad Gita, or he meets a guru or devotee who's able to teach him these concepts, and he takes up to this process also, then what happens? This process of yoga is capable of converting this person, removing those envy and everything. Eventually, it will bring that person to prema. One can, by following the process of yoga, one can clear all impurities, destroy all karma, and come to the platform of prema, while within even this material world itself. Within this life itself, it's possible to develop this. So once it's developed, so notice that I did not put karma as eternal. These five things, Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, and Kala, all four of them are eternal, except karma. Karma alone is temporary. And karma has nothing to do with the Lord, because it is entirely due to the jiva's actions and his choices which he makes within the Prakriti, and by the what we call, by the purview of time. So in this way, he creates his own karma. So he creates his own karma and he enjoys and suffers this karma of his on his own, nothing to do with the Lord. So it is not Lord who makes us suffer or even enjoy in this material world. He is the one who allows it to happen, because without his presence as Paramatma, nothing can happen in this world. So by his consent, things go through, but that is, he has nothing to do with whether or not it is either way. It is chosen and selected by the jiva. So therefore, this is karma. So once the jiva develops prema bhakti, then what happens? Because prema bhakti is actually controlled by the antaranga shakti. It is actually directly by the power of the antaranga shakti. And this is incompatible in bahiranga shakti, under the material energy. So what happens? He is immediately shifted straight away to the spiritual realm, antaranga shakti. So this is the key or the passport to go back to the kingdom of God and become a permanent resident over there. So the key is prema. So this is his plan, the Lord's plan. And we will hear a bit of these things also in chapter 9. So chapter 9 begins with this verse. I will just say it. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyami anasuyave jnanam vijnana sahitam yajnatva mukshya se ashubhat. So notice the word anasuya. Remember, I used the word asuya and anasuya. So asuya means envy. Anasuya means without envy. So the Supreme Lord says, my dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of these miseries of material existence. So just like I said just now, right? So this process is all about converting that jiva back to to remove that envy. So to remove the envy is the first step. Now, not all jivas are free of envy in that sense. So there are some who are not. So therefore, Krishna gave the two paths back. So this is the logic behind why there are two paths. So remember the two paths in yoga. So one is called the jnana path or the sankhya path, and the other is the bhakti path. So if you remember what was the jnana path, it begins with karma yoga, goes on to jnana yoga, then goes to dhyana yoga. So at jnana yoga, one attains Brahman liberation. And then at dhyana yoga, one attains Paramatma realization. But liberation, Brahman liberation alone is not going to bring him back to the spiritual world permanently, because he has not developed that prema bhakti. So he's still incompatible with the spiritual energy. So eventually, even at Brahman, so either from Brahman he can go further to bhakti, right? Or he may continue, he may again come down to the material world. So that's the problem. So this process is for the asuya. This jnana sankhya path is for those who are asuya, those who are envious of the Lord, because they cannot. Why this is for them? Because this is basically they find it very difficult to surrender to the Lord. How can you surrender to the Lord? Because the other path, the bhakti path, requires surrender. One has to surrender to the Lord, surrender one's will. One has to accept him as supreme. How can an asuya person do that? So therefore, they can't do this. So that's why the other path is given for those people. The Lord is merciful. He doesn't forsake anybody in this world. So anybody also, they have this method to continue. So by going through, but there is an opportunity at each level. At karma yoga, when he sufficiently attains sacrifice and detachment, he may develop, he may remove this asuya and he may come to the bhakti path. In the same way, jnana, if he gets the sufficient correct knowledge and intelligence, and then again association with the devotee, he may also come back to the bhakti path. But if not, he can go up still. And in this way, search within himself. And then at the end of that search, his level of purification here is already Brahman purified. But as he is searching for himself, he eventually comes and realizes that the Supreme Lord is in his heart, Paramatma. So at that point, if he is fortunate, again, seeing the Lord, after searching for the Lord so long and meditating on the Lord, one will certainly develop bhakti. His asuya will eventually be destroyed. And again, he may come to the bhakti path. So therefore, from asuya, the person can become anasuya. And this is the bhakti path, which is meant for those who are not envious. So therefore, we have the first verse, chapter 9, the most secret of knowledge, the king of all knowledge. And the qualification is one has to be anasuya. That means without envy for the Supreme Lord. Why is this so important? Because this is the path of surrender to the Supreme Lord. So here, asuya is this jnana path is for those who say, okay, I don't want to have anything to do with God. Why should I surrender to God? God is God. I want to be God. I am God. Or they may think like that, or they say, I will do it. I will liberate myself by my own strength. I will not rely on anybody. I don't need God to help me to liberate myself. So these people who may think that way, this jnana path is also there. So it's called sometimes the path of light, because they are in darkness and they are trying to search for that light. So they may come here. Eventually, they will attain the goal also. So this is basically, and in Anasuya path, in the Bhakti path, so the processes here are the 9 processes of Bhakti. You remember we said Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam. So like that, 9 processes of Bhakti. By performing these 9 processes of Bhakti, we gradually remove the karma. We convert the lust in our heart, the desire for dominion and all that. All these things is slowly thrown away by the mercy of the Lord, because actively the devotee is trying to attain the Lord. So what's the difference between these 2 paths? Another difference is, in this bhakti path, the Lord directly assists the person. Just like if a child is trying to reach the parent, the child is, running, and then he's falling down, and then running, and then he's falling down. The parent knows that the child wants to come back to him. So the parent is tempted to help the parent, help the child personally. Whereas in the Anasuya stage, they reject the personality of God. They don't want to accept his assistance. So therefore the Lord, okay, never mind, you go through these processes. All this, I'm only giving you the way out. But eventually they will come back here. So in this way, by going through the 9 processes of bhakti, they will, from stage by stage of bhakti, different stages of bhakti. There is bhakti in the beginning, shraddha, what do you call, what was that term I used yesterday? Sadhana bhakti, yes. Bhakti in practice, sadhana bhakti. So from sadhana bhakti, they go to bhava bhakti, and then from bhava bhakti, like that. So these are, bhava bhakti is already a few stages above. So in this way, they come eventually to prema bhakti by following this process. And then once they attain prema bhakti, they go back to the Supreme Lord. So this is the idea. So now in verse 9.2, a very important verse. So Krishna, this is the definition of this chapter. So remember, this chapter is called Raja Vidya Yoga. So it's basically coming from this verse. Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyakshaavagamam Dharmyam Sukam Kartum Avyayam. So this verse, this knowledge, Vidya, knowledge means Vidya. So this knowledge is the king of education. So Raja Vidya. And Prabhupada also names this chapter as the most confidential knowledge, because it is the king of secrets, Raja Guhyam. So king of Guhya means secret. So Raja Guhya means king of all secrets, the most secret of all secrets. And it is at the same time, Krishna talks about the nature of this. Krishna is talking about Bhakti Yoga here, you see, from chapter 7 all the way to chapter 12. So chapter 9, he's directly saying the nature of Bhakti. So this Bhakti is Pavitram. That means it is the purest. It's very, very pure, and it is Pavitram idam uttamam. That means it's the purest of, is the greatest of the pure things which are purifying us. So it is the purest knowledge, and it's able to purify us completely. And it is Pratyaksha-vagamam dharmyam. So because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is called the perfection of religion. So any religion in this world which teaches one to love God, that is considered a bona fide religion. Because in every religion, Krishna puts that seed inside. There might be different emphasis in certain places, but in every religion, there will be some aspect of this, love of God. So it is therefore here, this love of God is exposed very beautifully, and it is given high prominence and complete, details. It's a science, actually. It's an entire science. It's broken into stages and everything. Different processes are there on how one can, the art of falling in love with God. And that is called the perfection of religion. And what else is the nature of bhakti? So it is everlasting. Avyayam. The word avyayam means eternal, everlasting. It never ends. And it is also joyfully performed. Susukam kartum. So performed joyfully. Susukam. Now remember earlier in the chapter 6, Krishna was telling Arjuna about dhyana yoga. And then he's saying, this is dukkham. It's very difficult. Dukkham. This process, simply renouncing everything, cannot give you happiness. So Krishna is telling, whereas you can see the contrast to bhakti, sukham. It is joyfully performed. Every activity of bhakti creates that kind of feeling in the heart. And then 9.3, then he talks about the qualification also, another qualification for bhakti. Ashraddha dana purusha dharmasyasya parantapa aprapya mam nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani. Those who are not faithful, so shraddha, ashraddha means not faithful. Faith, the word faith comes from shraddha. So faith is a very important point in this bhakti process. So those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore, they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. So Krishna is telling every other yogi, he will eventually return back because he's not able to remain in the Antaranga Shakti. So therefore, he's saying, take up this path of bhakti, which will change your heart on your own. So in this way, develop a desire to serve me and develop love towards me. And in this way, we can remain forever in the spiritual world. So this chapter, Raja Vidyam, from 9.1, we talked about how it is not for the envious. And we spoke also about how faith is very important in this process. And we spoke about the nature of bhakti. And then from 9.4 to 9.10, Krishna will speak about, he will reveal more about himself. So because ultimately the goal of bhakti is to understand Krishna. So therefore he will give more details about himself. So he says, everything is created by me, but yet creation does not rest in me. So this, I call this Achintya Krishna. The Acharyas also explain it that way. Why? Because here, achintya, the word achintya means inconceivable, difficult, cannot understand, impossible to understand. Another word for it is like you could say the English word paradox. Two opposite things existing simultaneously together. So here, everything is created by me, yet creation does not rest in me. So he's trying to say that he is separate. Though everything comes from him and everything is basically, what do you call, resting on him, because earlier in chapter 7, Krishna said also, this entire material creation is resting upon me, just like a thread. I'm like the thread and the pearls are being strung by that thread. In chapter 7, he mentions this. But in chapter 9.4, he's trying to, he says, yet creation doesn't rest in him. So it rests in him, but it doesn't rest in him. It's created by him, yet it is separate from him. So how to understand this? To understand this is, Krishna is Swarat, independent. He is not bound. Just because he has created this material world, that doesn't mean that he is, oh, I need to take care of this world. Oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to maintain this, I have to maintain that, I have to, watch out for this person. No, he doesn't have to do that. So in that sense, that's the meaning here. He is separate. His job, actually, he doesn't have a job. His nature is simply, that's why he's called Purusha, the enjoyer. And what he does, he simply has various pastimes or leelas with his devotees in the spiritual kingdom. So he's completely aloof. So then who does all this maintenance and taking care and everything? So what Krishna does, he expands himself, he duplicates himself. So just like how one single candle can light many different candles, so, and all the other candles can have equal brightness, right? But there is still one original candle, right? So that one original candle is Krishna. And then he expands himself into Vishnu forms, different Vishnu forms. And the purpose of this Vishnu form is to perform all these other things, to manage, to create material creation, to come and do various activities in the material world. And in this way to do the various activities, basically, material creation and all that. So therefore, he expands himself as Balaram, and then from Balaram, the Chaturvyuha incarnation, the four, Aniruddha, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and from there, Mahavishnu, or also known as Karanodakashaya Vishnu, and from Karanodakashaya Vishnu becomes Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and from there becomes Shirodakashaya Vishnu, the one who is lying in the ocean of milk, and he is also the same Paramatma who expands in every living entity. So in this way, he has expansions, taking care and supervising entirely, and he also has his energies which are working with his expansions to get everything done automatically. So this is God. This is the definition of God. He's only enjoying. Therefore, you see Krishna, you don't see him doing work. He's basically playing the flute, enjoying, and having different leelas and pastimes with his devotees. So then further, Achintya Krishna, all beings are in me. And then what he says, but after that, he will straight away, but I am not in them. Though he is actually in them because he's Paramatma, but that doesn't mean that he is part of that Jiva. So there is a clear distinction. The Jiva and the Supreme Lord are separated eternally. They are not the same. Jiva is not God. So Jiva is not God, never was God, and can never become God. So that is an illusion in this world. So God is God and Jiva is Jiva. So that is different. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So this is Achintya, inconceivable. It's difficult to understand. And this is one of his opulences. One of the opulence of God is that he can be inconceivable. That is the hallmark of someone who can be termed as God. And then he says, I am the maintainer of all living entities and I am everywhere, but yet I am not part of this cosmic manifestation. So he's trying to say here, everything depends on him. He's maintaining everything, but he's saying at the same time, I am not material. So he's not part of this cosmic manifestation. He's not part of this material energy. He is entirely spiritual. So that is what he's saying here. And then he says, I am the source of creation, and by my will, it is maintained and annihilated. But then here he culminates what I was trying to say all the while. Still, all this work cannot bind me. So he is supremely independent. So therefore, he is called Swarat. Swarat means supremely independent. Whereas we are not. We are bound by rules, regulations, different, the three modes of nature, karma, various other things. Even when we are liberated, we are dependent on the Lord's mercy. So then, like that, verse 9.11, then he says, fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme Lord of all that be. They do not know. What they don't know? They don't know that Mama Bhuta Maheshwaram, I am the Lord of all living entities. Maheshwaram, great Lord, great controller of all living entities. And they do not know Param Bhavam Ajnato. Ajananto means they do not know I am my transcendental nature. Param, which is transcendental and the highest. So these Manusyans, when I come in this human form, this is my human form. Actually, human beings are created in the image of God. So even in Christianity, this is mentioned, right? Man is made from the image of the Father in heaven. So therefore, the Supreme Lord's original form, which is Krishna, is two-armed form, the human form of, being two-armed. So later on, he will confirm this more in the Bhagavad Gita. So here he says, fools deride me when I descend. So there will always be anasuyas. There will always be asuyas, those who are envious and those who are not envious in this world. So just like this past time here, there's a story during the Mahabharata. This is in the Mahabharata. This was the time when Yudhishthira Maharaj was the king of Indraprastha. The Kauravas, they were very, very envious. They were asuyas. They were very envious of Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas, and they didn't want them to have the kingdom. So, and they knew that, actually by right, the Pandavas should be the king. They should be the heir of the throne. Yudhishthira Maharaj should be the heir of the throne, being the son of Pandu, and Pandu was the king. But by intrigue and politicking, this Duryodhana managed to convince his father Dhritarashtra that actually why I should be the king. So, and therefore, but they couldn't blatantly just disinherit them. So therefore, what they did, they decided to divide the property into two. So they told, okay, I'll take half the kingdom. You go and take this other region of land, which at that time was called Kandava Prashta. And then Dhritarashtra also agreed. So when the Pandavas went to Kandava Prashta, they saw it was a desert. It was completely barren. Nothing was growing on it. And that was the reason the Kauravas wanted to take the fertile part of the kingdom and gave the Pandavas the worst part of the kingdom. But still, by Krishna's grace and a lot by Krishna's friendship and by his advice and by the expert management of the Pandavas and by the expertise of Yudhishthira Maharaj, they managed to convert Kandava Prashta from a barren land into an extremely prosperous place, even more prosperous than the current Hastinapura, and as prosperous as heaven, and even rivaling that of Indra's abode. So there are many stories there, long stories, how they managed to do this. And then Yudhishthira Maharaj became so glorious and so powerful and so popular that actually Duryodhana just couldn't take it anymore. And together with Duryodhana, there was other people also, all right, later I'll mention. And in this way, then what happened, Yudhishthira Maharaj, he wanted the crowning jewel of his achievement, he wanted to create a Rajasuya sacrifice. So by performing the Rajasuya sacrifice, he wanted to dedicate all this glory, all this kingdom and the entire world, he wanted to dedicate it to Krishna. So he actually asked Krishna's permission. Should I do this? Because I've been getting this indication from Narada and a few others. Then Krishna gave his permission, and this way they collected so much of wealth and they conquered the entire world. And then at the culmination of it, they performed the Rajasuya sacrifice. So in the Rajasuya sacrifice, they invited all the kings in the world, those who have been conquered and those who have voluntarily accepted the overlordship of Yudhishthira Maharaj as the emperor of the world. So in this Rajasuya sacrifice, after the end of the sacrifice, the ritual is completed when the most worthy person in that assembly is worshipped. So it's described that in that assembly, even the Devatas were there. Lord Brahma was there, Lord Shiva was there, so many other great personalities were there, the kings were there, everybody were there also. And Yudhishthira Maharaj selected Krishna after consulting the different sages. Narada was there, all the various sages were there. After asking every one of them, he suggested Krishna, and he confirmed with all the other sages and got their blessings. And Bhishma Dev also supported the idea. And in this way, Krishna was installed on the throne, and he was glorified. So here I'm going to show you the picture of how Krishna was glorified by Yudhishthira Maharaj here. This is Narada. And in this way, they glorified him and they worshipped him. And this was going on. And in this assembly, there was a person who just couldn't tolerate this. So that person was called Shishupal. Now, Shishupal was the king of Chedi. And it said that when he was born, he actually was born deformed due to a curse in his previous life. He was born with, actually Shishupal and Dantavakra, there's a story behind them. They are not ordinary. But anyway, he was born deformed. He was born with 4 hands and 3 eyes. So his parents and relatives, in fact, were scared of him. Because imagine your child is born with 3 eyes and 4 arms. Ooh. So they were scared of him and they decided to cast him out. But when they wanted to do that, a voice from the heavens spoke. It said, "O king, your son will be fortunate and superior in strength. Don't be scared of him. Indeed, cherish him without anxiety. His extra hands and eye will disappear in the lap of a person who will kill him." And then the voice became silent. So after hearing this, so the voice basically stopped them from casting him away. And at the same time, it also predicted the death of Shishupal. So they said this Shishupal, his deformity will disappear the moment he is put on the lap of the person who will kill him. So, it's at the same time they want his deformity to go away. At the same time, they were scared who will kill him. But anyway, they decided to call everybody and all the family members, all the great kings or whoever it is. And then they put this baby Shishupal on the lap of this person. Now, this Shishupal was in the same family as the Vrishnis. The Vrishnis were the family of Krishna, the Yadavas, right? So, and since same family, so Krishna was already there at that time. Was small. He already killed Kamsa, and he had already taken control of Mathura. So at that time, this baby Shishupal was put on the lap of Krishna. So when he was put on the lap of Krishna, his deformities disappeared, and that's it. And everybody knew lah. So this was the person who was going to kill Shishupal. So in this way, anyway, at that time, the mother of Shishupal, she begged Krishna, "So please, he's my son. Don't, I know you have to kill him and everything, but no matter what he does to you, can you at least promise me that you will excuse him 100 times for whatever offense that it's worthy of him being killed? Can you please promise to excuse him at least up to 100? No, she asked him to excuse him. And then Krishna himself said, "I will excuse him just for your sake up to 100 times. But his destiny is to die eventually. So therefore, for 100 situations, I will excuse him." So in this way, this this Shishupal grew up to be the king of Chedi. But as he was growing up, he was always envious of Krishna. He could not tolerate. Krishna was, in different ways. Everything that Krishna did, it would be like poison to his eyes. So this was the nature. Because in his previous life, actually, this Shishupal and Dandavakra, in their previous lives, they were actually Ravana and Kumbhakarna. And before that, they were Jai and Vijay. Before that, they were Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, the two demons. So anyway, this is going to be their last birth in this material creation. There's a story behind that also. So anyway, this envy was very strong in this Shishupal. And in this way, he tried to, in different ways, he will create problems for Krishna. And he would insult Krishna in various ways. He will do so many bad things, he even attacked. He tried to, so I don't want to go into the various stories. This is all described in the Mahabharata. So like that, he did so many things, and then finally in the Rajasuya sacrifice, he started, when he was being glorified, when Krishna was being glorified, he couldn't take it anymore. He just got up and he just started blaspheming Krishna like anything. He's insulting Krishna. This Krishna, this cowherd fella, he's like this, he did that, he left the gopis, he had so many people, and then everything that he can find, which he couldn't understand the real meaning behind, he blasphemed Krishna about. So like that, Krishna was counting, okay, 56, 57, 73, 94, 95, 98, 99, 100. As soon as the 100th offense was committed, all the other kings were on their feet. They were rising. They were about to chastise this Shishupal. And this Shishupal was also a great demon. So then at that time, Krishna, at the 100th insult, Krishna summoned his Sudarshan Chakra. And this Sudarshan Chakra came and cut off Shishupal's head in such a way that the head, it flew away and landed somewhere else, and all the blood between the head and the body was burnt away by the Sudarshan Chakra, so that not even one drop of blood touched the floor. Because after the Rajasuya sacrifice, the blood cannot touch the floor, otherwise the entire sacrifice is nulled. So he did it in that way, and everybody could see that there was a bright light that came out from Shishupal and merged into the body of Krishna. So this is the type of what is called Brahman realization, merging into the effulgence. It's not that they become God, it merges into the effulgence of Krishna, the Brahma Jyoti of Krishna. So that's what happened to Shishupal. And this is just an example of a story of how, there will always be asuyas. So the fools, the verse here was, the particular verse which we were talking about was, fools deride me when I descend in the human form. So even when Krishna was present personally himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there were people who could not accept him. The demons mainly, like Duryodhana, all the great personalities accepted him, like Bhishma and all the other devotees. So then we continue this story. The story is done. We go on to the verse 9:13. So therefore Krishna says, however, the Mahatmanas tumam Partha, O son of Partha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, the Mahatmas, they accept the Supreme Lord and they follow the Bhakti path. Why? They are under the protection of the divine nature. So these people who follow Bhakti process, they are directly under the protection of the divine nature. What is this divine nature? This is the internal energy of the Lord, Antaranga Shakti. So directly under the supervision and purview of the spiritual energy of the Lord. They are fully engaged in devotional service. And being in this, they put their goal as the Lord and they fully engage themselves because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So I put this picture here of this gondola climbing the mountain. Because if, let's say, our goal is to reach the top of the mountain, there are two ways we can do this. A person who is very puffed up, they may say, I do not trust anything. I only trust upon myself. With my own ability, without depending on anyone else, I will reach the mountain top. So such a person may take to this path, which is climbing up the mountain like this. So this is the jnana path, Sankhya path, where he does not receive any assistance. Whereas the bhakti path, you can also reach the top of the mountain. But what it takes to go to the top of the mountain, the person must have faith that this contraption of cables and this gondola will not collapse. That they put, this is like putting faith in science, putting faith in the engineering that ensure that everything goes on well. So some faith is needed to step into this and then go on. So in the same way, the faith is needed to take this lift of bhakti to go to the supreme abode. So that will drive us. And then Krishna says, I am equal to all. I give equal opportunity for everybody. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion, I am a friend to him. So he becomes beneficial. He personally assists those who take this particular path. So that's why it becomes easier for us. So therefore, we have understood all this part. The knowing Krishna, Mudas cannot know, the foolish. The Mahatmas, they can know. And then we saw the difference between the Jnanis and the Bhakti path. And then Krishna further speaks about himself, how he is the Lord of everything, Prayojan. He's the goal of everything. He's the ultimate objective or the goal of all living entities. How he is Ishvara Parama Krishna, supreme controller of everything. So 9:17 goes on to say, Krishna goes on to say, I am the father of this universe. I am also the mother, because his energy is also part of him. And I am the support. And I am the object of knowledge. I am the purifier. I am the syllable Om. And I am the Vedas. So these are all aspects of him. And then he goes on to say in 9:18, I am the goal, I am the sustainer, the master, the witness as Paramatma, master as the Param Bhagavan, the abode, the refuge, the most dear friends, Suhurdam Sarva Bhutanam, right? He mentions this in chapter 5, the peace formula. The creation, the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place, the supreme cause, Sarva Karana Karanam. And then he says, I am immortality and I am also death personified. And both spirit and matter are in me. So this is indicating that both the Antaranga Shakti and the Bahiranga Shakti matter are coming from the Lord only, although the Lord is spiritual and beyond matter. So after knowing all this, after saying this to Arjuna, he declares it first. First he declares, in this chapter, chapter 9, he will declare to Arjuna first. And later on, there are other evidences to show, other than simply declaration. And then Krishna will say in 9:22, very important verse, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janaha paryupashate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them, earlier Krishna already said, right, I'm equal to everyone, but one who takes the path of devotion, I am a friend to him. So here he tells how he is a friend to him. So to the devotees, right, what does he do? I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. So he personally intervenes in their lives to maintain them and carry what he doesn't, he does what is necessary for them so that they will attain the ultimate abode. So here I'm showing a picture of how Draupadi, when she was being disrobed in the assembly hall of the center of the world in that time, and she raised her arms. First she raised one arm and she kept her other arm holding on to her sari, because Dusashan was pulling the sari, and Duryodhana was laughing. Here Duryodhana was sitting and laughing, and Karna was also sitting and laughing. In fact, Karna was the one who told Dusashan, go and disrobe her, because Karna was always envious of Pandavas, and he had a grudge against Draupadi, because Draupadi, when during the Swayamvara ceremony, both Karna and Arjuna went there, but Draupadi didn't want Karna to participate. So Karna was always holding a grudge. And this is how he wanted to take his revenge on a helpless lady when she was, she was having a menses at that time, and she was wearing one single cloth. So that was the culture. And in this situation, she was not supposed to come in public, but they dragged her. This Dusashan forcibly dragged her with her hair, and in this way brought her to the public. And in this way, Duryodhana will say, come and sit on my thigh. He pulled up his dhoti and said, your husbands cannot save you, your Bhima and all these people cannot help you now. Come and sit on my thigh and choose another husband. And Karna was laughing at the background. So because of this sin, all these people who supported it or kept silent had to die. And this was part of the excuse Krishna had, because he wanted to destroy all these people anyway. That was the reason he came in this, due to the prayer of Bhuma Devi, he wanted to kill all the demonic Kshatriyas. So anyway, so this happened. So when this happened, Draupadi was crying, and she spoke so many words. None of it was able, and then she held on to her sari in one hand. First, she held both hands on her sari, and then she was being disrobed. And then she couldn't resist Dusashan's strength. She held on one hand, and one hand she raised, and she thought of Krishna. But then finally she thought, I cannot, this Dusashan, let it be. And she raised both hands. So at that time, when she gave complete surrender to the Lord, it said, the Acharyas describe how the Lord himself came incarnated as a sari and continues, because the Lord is eternal. And in the same way, the sari also became eternal. She pulled and pulled and pulled. The sari became continuously, ever increasing length. Every sari shop's dream come true. But anyway, it continued like that. So that is how he carries what they lack and preserves what they have. So the karmis cannot know Krishna. They do not know that this is Rajaguhyam. And how Krishna what Krishna does for these people who surrender to him and take up this path, or even try to take up this path. The Lord reciprocates with them. So Krishna preserves the bhaktas, and how the Lord is the Govindam Adipurusha, means he is the supreme Lord, the supreme enjoyer. Purusha means enjoyer. Adi Purusha means original enjoyer, ultimate enjoyer. And that ultimate enjoyer is the Lord. And in this way, verses 924, which we are not mentioning here at this point. And then towards the end of this chapter, he will go on to speak about devotional service. What is this devotional service? So, Bhakti Marga, the path of Bhakti. So he begins by saying, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, another famous verse. Yome Bhaktya Prayachati, Tat Aham Bhakti Upahritam, Ashnami Prayatmanaha. If one offers with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit of water, I will accept it. So this is where the concept of prasadam comes from. So the idea of prasadam means Krishna prasadam. So whatever one, and then later in the next verse, he says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, or whatever you give away, whatever activities or austerities that you perform, O son of Kunti, do it as an offering to me. So this is the beginning of bhakti. It starts with, it's basically a modification of karma yoga. Because the jnani path of karma yoga, they do it for the sake of duty. But the bhakti version of karma yoga is, you do it for me, you do it for Krishna. So in this way, the devotees, they try to dedicate everything for the pleasure of the Lord. Here is a practical example how we can do this, how we can begin bhakti. We can begin bhakti by offering our food to Krishna, and after that eating that as prasadam. So that is bhakti. Eventually, those who follow this path, they eat only prasadam. So they don't eat anything else. So that is as we develop our bhakti further and further. But it begins with this. So if we all also can do this, it's nice if we can all offer something every day for the pleasure of the Lord. We are cooking at home, even if we don't cook, if we drink milk, we can offer milk, we can offer fruits, we can offer sweets. If we can offer lunch, breakfast, and dinner, that would be best. But if not, then at least offer water. So Krishna is not making it very difficult, right? But it should be going on constantly. So we should make a constant practice of it. So then it becomes sadhana, daily activity. So that is bhakti. So like this, it goes, and then Krishna goes on. In 934, he tells Arjuna, therefore Arjuna, man mana bhava mad bhakto, mad yaji mam namaskuru, mam evaisyasi yuktaivyam, atmanam mad parayanaha. So he tells Arjuna, this is a very famous verse, very, very important verse. We should remember this verse in the bhakti path, right? So what it says, engage your mind always thinking of me. Man mana bhava mat bhakto. Mana means mind, man mana bhava. So upon me, mana bhava mat bhakto, become my devotee. Engage your mind always thinking of me and become my devotee. Then he says, mat yaji mam namaskuru. Worship me, mat yaji, and mam namaskuru. Offer your obeisances to me. So this itself is devotional service. Whenever we see the Lord, we offer our obeisance because it's mentally cultivating us to accept the concept that Krishna is Lord and Master. So it is trying to remove this nature of envy away from the Lord. If at all there is, to convert the mentality that I am Master to Lord is Master, Krishna is Master. So in this way, by performing these activities, it will slowly condition our mind. So it's basically a practice. And then he says, Mam evaisyasi yuktaivam, being completely absorbed in me, atmanam mat parayana. So surely you will come back to me. So surely, he says, surely. So by taking this process of bhakti, even if one starts in the beginning, it is already confirmed. Whether in this life or in another 100 lives or in another 1,000 lives, it is guaranteed that we will attain Krishna's abode. It's just a matter of how much we are going to put into it. So we can either reach the Lord within this lifetime, or if you decided to take it slow, if you want to enjoy the material world in different lifetimes as Kali Yuga progresses, that's also our choice. But eventually we will reach there. Prabhupada will say, Prabhupada tells us, you have spent unlimited lifetimes traversing this material universe in different births. Can we not give this one life for the Lord? In this way, we can attain Him and eternally be with the Lord. So we can develop this faith step by step. So therefore, the International Society of Krishna Consciousness is made by Srila Prabhupada for that purpose, so that like-minded people can come together and inspire each other. And in this way, if we want to do something, if, for example, in school, if let's say we want to do well in our school, what we will do, we will try to make friends amongst those who are serious in that also, isn't it? So like-minded, birds of a feather. So together is like we form a club. If we like to do cooking, then we form a cooking club, or we talk to people who have the similar interest. So in the same way, the society's purpose is for that. It is for getting all the association of devotees together. In this way, we can talk about the Lord, worship the Lord, engage in devotional service in the Lord, come together and organize festivals and activities for the pleasure of the Lord. So in this way, perform devotional service it's very pleasurable. Susukam. So with that, we end this chapter 9. And before we end, I'll just say this particular verse. This is from the Sri Shikshashtakam spoken by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, and he propagated this chanting of the Mahamantra. So he says the 8 verses only is recorded from what he spoke. This is the first verse. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. So he's saying Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. This chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, this Kirtanam, Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, all glories to this Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. Why? Because it Cheto Darpana Marjanam. It can remove the dust which is accumulated within our heart, within the mirror of our heart. So Cheto means heart, Darpana Marjanam. So all the dust which is accumulated, the impurities, it can remove. Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam, and it can save us from the great forest fire. You know, when we are caught in a forest fire, nothing can save a person in a forest fire. So whereas this material creation, being situated in this material creation, especially in Kali Yuga and all that, it's considered to be like that, a forest fire. So our situation is like we are burning in this forest fire. So what it can do, it can save us from the Nirvapana. And what else can it do? Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitarana. It will, just like the lotus, upon moonlight, it will bloom. And then the blue lotus, actually, it blooms when the moonlight strikes it. So in the same way, our heart will also bloom with all good qualities following this chanting of the Mahamantra. Vidya Vadu Jivanam. It is the king and the goal of all knowledge. Vidya is knowledge. It is the soul of all knowledge. Anandam Buddhim Vardhanam. It will create bliss, unending Ananda. It will create bliss like an ocean. So in this way, it will inundate us with this bliss. Pratipadam Purnamrata Svadanam. And this bliss of ocean will increase at every step by step, as we progress in our devotional service. Step by step, as we go on, this ocean of bliss will be ever increasing. Sarvatma Snapanam, and this is for those who take bath in this every day. Sarvatma means always, every day. Snapanam, taking bath in this Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. So by chanting this Hare Krishna Mahamantra daily, this is the process of bhakti, which is recommended, and in this way we can attain all of these and eventually attain our goal of Krishna Prem. So let us all chant together. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Sri Krishna Bhagavan ki, Jai Bhagavad Gita ki. So before that, take away today, chapter 9, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, King of Knowledge, King of Secrets. And knowing how Krishna is inconceivable. So we cannot understand Krishna by our own strength. His activities would seem difficult for us to understand because he's Swarat, Swayam Bhagavan. And here he gives a few examples of how he's inconceivable. But the pure devotee who follows the bhakti path can begin to understand his glories. And how the devotee is always protected. And also he speaks about the bhakti marga, the path of devotion. Details are given on some steps of what can one do in this particular path. So with that, we end this. So any questions from anybody? So I hope it was clear. And if there's anything, you can unmute yourself or you could just tap it. There's nothing in the chat that I see today. So I think it's quite clear for everybody, hopefully. Right, so even if you have any other questions further also, feel free to type it in the chat, in the WhatsApp, and then we can also discuss it on the next day. Okay, so tomorrow we will do chapter 10. And with that, we'd like to end here. Thank you very much for your time and patiently listening to us and going through day 9 already. So we have now covered half the Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, half, and that's why chapter 9 is kept right in the middle of the Bhagavad Gita. And that's the secret, the topmost secret, king of knowledge. Okay, so thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I'll see you all again tomorrow. Good evening.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Good night.
Hare Krishna.